So pretty much in my first video where I talked about moving to Vancouver and the reasons why I hate Vancouver, I got straight roasted. But what the reality is, not a lot of people watch the entire video and take everything way too seriously on the internet. So for my response and my own rebuttal, being born and raised here, living in the streets of Vancouver, is that here's my reasons why I love living in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. You see, before I didn't really travel a lot, especially when it comes to places like the United States and other places of the world, so I didn't really have a thing to compare it to. And you know the saying, you don't really know how good you have it until you either travel somewhere else or, when it's gone. When it comes to living in Vancouver, the number one thing why I love living in Vancouver is that there's so much public transportation. And it's run by one monopoly company called TransLink. And the benefit of having a really good infrastructure in Vancouver is that you can be 40 years old and not have a car, and people will still look at you completely fine. Because literally you can travel anywhere within the greater Vancouver area without having to step foot in an Uber, in a taxi, and it's relatively cheap. You see, when I was recently in California, one of the things in Los Angeles that really bugged me, or I was maybe privileged of, is coming from Vancouver. Because LA itself is so spread out, whether it's in the different little cities. You got Santa Monica, you got Venice, you got Koreatown, you got Chinatown, and you literally have to Uber everywhere because the buses did not come frequently, and it just seemed like no one took the bus in California, LA. But when coming back to Vancouver, you realize that a majority, millions of people take the bus, millions of people have their monthly bus cards, and the overall convenience of it is that the buses come every 5, sometimes 2 to 3 to 5 minutes, and even 10 minutes, and that is a luxury to have.
And on top of that, there's literally almost a bus stop in every street corner, every residential neighborhood, and especially we have things like the SkyTrains, we have the sea buses, and there's more funding being built into public transportation.
So one of the reasons why living in Vancouver is so damn awesome is because of public transportation, and you don't need to rely on things like a car. The second reason why I like being in Vancouver is that the relative closeness of where everything and everyone is. Essentially, there's a food joint on every corner of the street, there's some kind of grocery store, there's some kind of community center. You see, I'm not trying to hate on LA, but it's how I compare things and how I reference things, is that in LA, everything is so spread out. Yet again, not only with cars and public transportation and just city infrastructure, but there wasn't really any kind of local meeting place. Yes, you have little, tourist things here and there, and you have Venice Beach, but in Vancouver, it is much more connected as the city itself is a lot more smaller, meaning you can travel to places a lot quicker, but on top of that, it's easier to meet people, and you might argue on that, but you can literally do a lot of more things, travel a lot more within this small city, and it overall feels like much more conquerable, which is a good or bad thing, but I think it's a good thing in my books. The third reason why I love being in Vancouver, and maybe it's just the Canadian thing, but people in Vancouver are overly nice. Yes, don't get me wrong, there's that scum of the scum in any sort of the world, right? There's some rude people and you kind of generalize, oh, I hate these type of people. I'm not trying to be racist, but for the majority of the part, people in Vancouver are relatively nice and friendly. And me being raised in the city, maybe I'm used to it, used to being people having, a lot of patience, smiles and nice, than being all just overall friendly. For example, if you go up to any food joint and you order something, likely, even if you don't speak the most proper English or English isn't your first language, they'll most likely be patient with you. But in complete contrast, if you're somewhere in the United States and you want to order something on the fast food menu, it's all about, next, get a line, next. So I think people in Vancouver are a lot nicer. And on top of that, me being Canadian and traveling to the United States, I realized how Canadian I was, because for every slight bump or, me accidentally, unintentionally getting in people's way, I said sorry. Maybe, and Americans look at me like, whoa, you must be Canadian. But Canadians, maybe I'm just used to people being overly nice and polite. Some might call it fake. But I think it's another reason why I love being in Vancouver, is that the people itself is very nice. And that's a good thing, all right? Nice guys don't finish last. So if you're thinking of coming to Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, whether that's for travel, for leisure, for business, yes, there are a couple downsides, like I said in my other video, which I already mentioned, like, the higher cost of living, things like unsocialness, I guess you would say. But for the most part, being Vancouver, not a lot of light pollution, although there's no such thing as smog up in here. Public transportation, the weather, yes, we have rain, but it's not necessarily like the smog or the heaviness. And overall, being in Vancouver, it's not that bad. And those are the reasons why I love living in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Shout outs to all the people from the 604. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Please don't take my videos too seriously.